The Idol Hero, Songstress, Part 12. Fic by DrgnMstr. Narrated by Silver Rose. Chapter 16, Spheres of Influence. Just want to say real quick, thank y'all so much for being patient with these episodes. I've been trying to find my little spot here on YouTube, and I think we have a good schedule set up now, but if you enjoy, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe down below. And with all that being said, let's go ahead and get into the chapter. Chapter 16, Spheres of Influence. Shoto followed his mother out of Yume's hospital room. Right behind him were Uraraka and Asui, both of whom appeared to be quiet at the moment. There was a nurse and a man in a business suit with the head of a horse standing outside the door leading to his hospital room. They appeared to be talking to each other, and the nurse was holding a clipboard with some papers placed on top. The horseman nodded his massive head up and down and whinnied a little, saying,
"As you can see, as Todoroki Inji is in custody awaiting trial for attempted murder of your charge, he has been ruled by the courts as unfit. Custody of Todoroki Shoto has been given to Todoroki Rei. While I am aware this is unusual, given Todoroki's son's recent release from hospitalization, the courts found that she should have been released a long time ago, and chose to overlook that issue."
"The paperwork appears to be in order," the nurse, a man with black hair and golden eyes, replied after eyeing the documents one last time. "I'm just not sure how the hospital administrators will view this. You must admit it is highly unusual."
"Sonara-san,"
Ray spoke up, grabbing the attention of both people in the hallway.
"first of all, thank you for your assistance today. You have been an excellent attorney, and quite proactive as well."
The Todoroki matriarch bowed to the man before standing and saying,
"That said, I would like to state that the administration of this hospital should be more willing to take the ward of the court into consideration when considering the welfare of my son. If they are not, please consider adding any offenses against my son to any actions you may or may not be taking in the future."
"Indeed,"
the horseman said, as he turned to the nurse and began motioning him back so the people in the hallway could get into the patient's room.
"I would like to speak to the administrator of the hospital concerning this and other matters. Perhaps I can be of some assistance to make sure my client's wishes are met."
The meaning of that statement was not lost on the nurse, who visibly gulped and not only moved out of the way, but asked the lawyer to follow him towards the nurse's station. Once everyone was inside the room, Shoto asked the most pressing question. "What was that about, Mother?" The woman went to sit on a chair near the hospital bed and motioned for her son to get back in bed, not saying another word until he did so.
"I'm sorry to ask, but who are these girls? And how much do they know?"
Before either girl could speak up, Shoto answered the questions for them.
"The one with the frog-like appearance is Asui Suyu, and the one with the brown hair is Uraraka Ochaka. They are girlfriends of Midoriya-chan, and very close friends of mine. As far as what they know almost everything Midoriya-chan knows, as they were with her when I described my home life to her."
The silver-haired woman nodded slowly and asked,
And why did you tell her what was going on? What is Midoriya-chan to you?
Midoriya-chan is my hero. The boy instantly answered, causing Tsuyu to croak and look for another chair. Ochako blushed and provided chairs for both of them by using her quirk to move them silently, so as to not interrupt the conversation. But the two girls weren't the only two blushing in the room. Shota was also sporting a blush even as he looked downward at his hands and said, She saw how I was hurting. I know you know nothing about her, but she has had a hard life up until recently. I can't tell you her story. It's not mine to tell. But her story and mine are similar in the broad strokes.
The main difference was the relationship of the abuser to the victim, Kiro.
Tsuyu spoke up.
If you have further questions about her past, while Ochako-chan and I can answer some questions, I must ask you that you ask her for anything we say we can't answer. Yeah, we weren't given permission to discuss such things. Enough has become public knowledge as it is, so we can answer the publicly known things, but other things are best left to her.
The brown-haired girl added with a sad look on her face.
I'm very sorry to hear that. It is obvious you care for her a lot.
The woman replied as she looked at them.
What I am trying to figure out is how my son fits in whatever dynamic you have with Midoriya-chan. I tend to speak my mind.
The frog girl responded to that statement.
But that is part of the reason we wanted to talk to Shoto-kun ourselves. Yume-chan calls Ochako-chan and me very important people to her, closer than her best friend, Komori-san, whom is another girl in her class. We go to a separate school from Yume-chan and Shoto-kun, but he has been making a place for himself within our dynamic. Shoto-kun's place is still up for discussion, but at the very least, he is a very close friend to our triad, Ghetto.
Ochako blushed deeper than usual at her friend's words and said,
I don't know what you'd call us officially. We never pinned it down. And we don't push Yume either. I know we told you she's had a hard life up until recently, but that's really understating things. We go at our speed. Shoto-san has been getting closer and closer to being in our circle of 3.
She paused for a moment, then sighed and shook her head.
I'm sorry. I really can't explain it better than that.
Said boy's blush deepened as the girls laid out their observations to his mother. He had a suspicion that was what they wanted. He had a suspicion that was what they wanted to talk about, but he was not ready to have it confirmed in front of the mother he hadn't seen in so long. I told her because I recognized a similarity between her experiences and my own, especially after the Aldera closing. I had questions about how she was able to persevere, and things just started to build from there. Todoroki Rei was a very observant woman. It's part of what drove her temporarily insane when her son was younger. Now, however, her observational skills served her in a more positive manner as she asked.
I noticed they call you by your first name, but I have yet to hear you talk of anyone but Midoriya-chan by their first name. May I ask why?
Because when that man attacked me, I gave up my family name and requested that they call me by my first name. I no longer wish to have any association with that man, his name included. The Fire and Ice user explained. I'm sorry if that hurts you, Mother, but what he did to you, to Toya, to Fuyumi, and to Natsuo were enough to make me stop using my fire. I called it his fire for so long. It is still taking some getting used to, thinking of it as my fire. But when he attacked me for being alarmed and concerned for Yume-chan, I had had enough. I can't call myself a Todoroki. It has too many connotations. A small tear fell down the mother's face as she stood up and hugged her son.
It's okay, Shokun. I understand. I filed for divorce on several legal grounds. Custody of you was the only consideration which was handled today. You don't have to be a Todoroki. When the divorce is finalized, I'm taking my maiden name back, Himura. If you want, you can take that name yourself and be Himura Shoto. Excuse me, one sec.
She then lessened her grip on her son, but finally registered that he had hugged her back equally as tightly. It was another minute or so before he loosened his grip enough to disengage the hug. She turned her gaze to the girls and said,
Sorry you had to see that. It's okay.
A red-faced Ochako answered first.
It's kinda touching, you know? And it's also very relieving that Shoto-kun is able to get some closure on that part of his life.
She turned to look to her best friend, who nodded before looking back to the woman and continuing.
To be honest, we've been rather worried about him for a while. Ever since we heard about what Endeavor was doing to him. But we couldn't never do anything about it. It was kind of, really frustrating to not be able to help in some way.
You were a help, the boy said simply. You two and the other girls gave me some place to be me, even though I'm not sure who that is, outside of his masterpiece. At least I could explore some of that.
That does ease my mind a bit, Kettle. Though, if I were to be honest, I bet that Yume-chan did more in that regard than anyone else.
The green-haired girl replied. Maybe. But I noticed she relies on you two quite a bit. More than anyone else our age, even Komori-chan. And she's supposed to be her future idol hero partner.
Excuse me?
The adult in the room interjected.
Idol hero?
Ochako grinned happily while nodding, and Sue just started chuckling, which came out as a series of softer bits. The boy in the room seemed a little lost as how to describe it. But Sue, being the first to get herself under control out of long practice, started to explain.
Yume-chan and Kimiko-chan are looking to follow the traditions of heroes like Uobami, but for vastly different reasons. She was ostracized for most of her life, mainly for things she had no control over, due to some anachronistic ways of thinking by some narrow-minded people. It was worse than simply outcasting, but in many ways, and it led her to decide to become a beacon of hope for others in similar situations.
Ochako nodded enthusiastically and said,
Yeah, she wants to let the downtrodden and forgotten know that they are not, in fact, forgotten. that there are people out there willing to extend a hand to those in need. She wants to let them know that there are those that understand what it is like to feel hopeless, worthless, forgotten. By her views, if she can do that, she can reduce the number of villains out there before they commit the first crime.
Shoto's eyes widened a bit as his lips turned upward into a smile. So that's what she meant. His mother looked at him curiously as he said, "Recently, she sung at a school assembly. And if you ever get the chance to hear her sing, I would highly recommend it. Songs sung by her have real power. It's part of her quirk even. But I could tell by the speech she made before her performance that she was dedicating the song to me." At the girl's grins, he shrugged. "I may be socially inept, but I'm far from stupid. Anyway, the dedication was two-tiered. The second tier was letting me know that she understood what I was going through. It helped me to finally use my fire." He shrugged again before continuing. "It was the first tier that confused me. It seemed she was making a declaration of sorts, but I couldn't understand it. But their words reminded me of what she said, and now it makes sense. She was telling everyone else that if they were suffering, they're not alone. Others are suffering too. They don't need to suffer in silence. They don't need to break. She showed the entire school that even if you do break, it is possible to come out of it stronger." Noticing the confused look on Ray's face, Sue decided to fill the woman in on the generalities of her girlfriend's quirk.
Yume-chan's quirk is strange. Even she admits it. But it is also very powerful. It appears to have two aspects. The first transforms her into any magical girl she sings about, giving her all the powers, but at a reduced level. Believe me, that is a good thing, considering some of the anime our friend watches."
Her gravity-defying friend chuckled at that and nods.
Out of necessity, our friend is a music and anime otaku. Both fuel her quirk. The other facet of her power is that songs not focusing on females allow her to project thoughts, memories, and feelings mentally over an area covered by her natural singing voice, which can be a far distance due to a secondary aspect of her quirk. It's that part that Shoto-kun was referring to her using at the assembly.
Indeed. The fire and ice user agreed. She showed us clips of her past, as well as clips of her present and the feelings associated with them. She showed how she was shunned at an early age and bullied until she finally broke. Then, she showed how she became stronger after breaking. I think the song was Stronger Than My Storm. The boy thought for a moment, then nodded. Yes, I think that's it. I don't know who sung it, or where to find it, but I want a copy of it. That song has, and is, helping me a lot.
I can download a copy to your music player, Shoto-kun.
The Gravity Girl provided.
I can't say I love that song, due to what it implies, but it is very inspirational, and definitely fits Yume-chan.
And I can see how it would also fit your situation, Shoto-kun, kiddo.
Sue added.
I've been meaning to ask you about how you're handling what your father tried to do to you, but we never had the chance.
The mother in the room let out a deep sigh and looked down at her hands.
Things have gone so far. If only I had been stronger.
Mom, the boy said while temporarily sidelining the question put to him. That man is an expert at hurting people. His hero stats alone show this. You broke protecting me, so once again, I don't blame you. If anything, it makes me hate him even more. When his mother gasps at that statement, he sighs. I'm sorry, Mom. And I'm going to have to apologize to Fumi as well. But this scar is not the only one I bear. It isn't even the only physical one I bear. The only reason I am in private school, instead of being tutored privately, is because the Family Services Department revoked his permission for homeschooling when they started looking into your case. That was when the training sessions, he explained, using air quotes around the words training sessions, started leaving wounds only in places my uniforms would cover. And I still had to use the excuse of training accident from time to time. The soon-to-be hero's ex-wife scowled when she heard that and asked,
And your school actually believed that?
No, was the answer given. But that man's lawyers were still too good. And he was constantly on me for being friends with Yume-chan. It got even worse after he caught me going to the LGBTQ+ meeting with her. Even though she explained it away as me being there so she didn't have to go hunting me after she was done.
Why?
The mother started, then stopped.
Does she...
She stopped again, blushing slightly, then softly said,
I'm not sure how to politely ask this.
The boy and said girl's two girlfriends looked at each other before Tsu took the bull by the horns by saying,
Well, based on the fact that Ochako-chan and I are in a close relationship, with her would imply some things. Kettle?
Ray nodded and said,
At the very least, it implies polyamory.
Yes,
the frog girl answered.
among other things. There are other things she is working through, as well, that are not so obvious. And those, I'm afraid, I must insist you ask her about.
Some of those things aren't just what she is experiencing, but what others close to her are experiencing.
Ochako helpfully supplied.
Really, Tsu-chan and I have the simplest descriptions of our crew. And I'm a pansexual polyamorous cis female. I used to consider myself bisexual, but that changed over the past few months.
I'm the same as her, except I was aware of my pansexuality for longer. Kiddo?
Shoto raised an eyebrow in confusion as the two girls declared their gender and sexuality before asking, You get turned on by pans? The entire room fell silent for a few moments before the two teens started rolling in their chairs in laughter, while clutching their stomachs. Ray just stared at her son wide-eyed and open-mouthed, her cheeks turning brilliant red.
Oh my god. Shoto! No!
She finally managed to say as she raised her palm to her forehead.
I'm so sorry, son. Just... no. That's not what that means. And if you're serious about that, then she really didn't do his job as a father.
The boy looked at his mother curiously as a slight blush formed on his face. What does it mean, then? Sue managed to get herself to calm down first. Her croaking laughs reduced to gentle ribbits as she tried to explain.
pansexual means, Kettle, that you are attracted to more than just males and females. For example, Kettle, you could be attracted to gender fluid people, Kettle, non-binary people, or even neuter people, Kettle.
Oh. The heterochromatic teen returned as he considered those words carefully. So if I were to say it didn't matter what gender a person is, I would be pansexual as well?
You may want to give serious thought to that.
Ray interjected gently.
But if that is how you feel, then yes. That would mean you would be pansexual as well.
I'm not sure I get what you mean, the boy replied. He felt a little embarrassed saying that, but he somehow felt safe saying that here.
Okay.
The brunette girl finally interjected, having gotten her laughter and giggles under control.
Here's the good test. When you may first transferred to your school, he...
The girl paused for a moment, looking toward the boy's mom, then looking over to her girlfriend questioningly. The frog girl understood the gravity girl's dilemma, took a moment to think with her finger on her chin, then shrugged and nodded.
Sorry about that. I was about to say something we originally had relegated to having you may tell your mom. But there's no way out of this.
Said mom tilted her head to the side and blinked at the suddenly cautious girl, the wonder clearly showing on her face. But she did not ask verbally. Rather, she waited for the girls to say what they needed to say.
Okay. You remember how Yume-chan was Izuku-kun when he first transferred to your school, right?
The two-tone boy nodded slowly in response, while the mother raised an eyebrow in surprise.
Okay. Now, for a little thought experiment. Imagine Izuku-kun not having his body permanently changed by his quirk. Imagine him not mutating into what she's become. Would you still be attracted to him?
The question got a blank look in response, which was about the last expression that any of the people in the room was expecting. I'm not sure I know what you mean by attracted to him, he said calmly. The two girls looked towards each other and blinked. Then turned their eyes not toward the boy, but his mother. The green-haired girl speaks up first and asks,
Do you see what we see? Or are we way off base by that question?
The boy looked even more confused by the woman looking at her son for a moment before sighing.
Tell me, is Yume-chan anything like this? Because this is almost painful. I don't want to come out and say it, but...
Can you not talk about me like I'm not here and tell me what you're talking about? The boy asked, growing slightly exasperated.
I'm not sure if it's our place to, kiddo.
Sue answered bluntly.
At least not directly. This is something you're supposed to work out on your own.
What? Whether or not I'm attracted to someone? I mean, physically? Yes, I would say Izuku-kun was attractive. And Yume-chan is attractive, but I'm pretty sure that's not what Uraraka-san meant.
Sweet Kami, there are two of them.
The gravity user muttered, though it went unheard by exactly no one in the room. She sighed and ran her hand down her face for a moment before looking at her girlfriend.
You're going to leave this to me, aren't you?
I'll help, but you're better at this, kiddo. I'm too blunt, remember?
Damn your lack of a filter.
The brown-faced girl half-jokingly sighed.
Okay. Let's try this another way. Let's go back a couple of days ago, to the morning Inko-san texted us. Now, I'm giving you a few different scenarios, and I want you to try to tell me how you would have reacted in each one. Okay?
The teen boy nodded once, though he still looked confused. I guess.
Okay. First scenario. Yume-chan never got mutated by her quirk.
Ochako started.
He remained a he, but had some kind of accident or villain attack, and everything else went exactly as it happened. How would you have reacted?
The confused boy barely even blinked, much less gave it a thought before answering. I would have done the exact same thing. The brunette nodded, having expected that answer, before continuing.
My mother got a hold of my phone and sent a text message indicating I was sent to the hospital. Say I was in a similar amount of danger as Yume-chan was. What would your reaction be?
Ochako's stomach churned while asking this question. She didn't think he felt the same way about her that he felt about Yume, but at the same time, she was scared of a complete lack of response. The boy himself took this seriously and sat there for a moment deep in thought. He wasn't the most expressive of people, so the questioner grew visibly more nervous as a couple of minutes went by. But the frog girl's mouth subtly turned up at the corners as she read the minute expressions on his face before he spoke. Well, I can't say they would have been exactly the same. I can say that I would have reacted similarly enough that the man would have been very angry with me still. He may still have tried to kill me, as he was in a bad mood already that morning, and I would still have gone to whatever hospital you were in rather than go to school. But I can't say that for certain. I can only say that I would have tried to get to you as quickly as I could as well. Ochako almost melted a little at that almost confession, even if she knew the boy didn't know what it was he was saying. Inwardly, she was cursing Endeavor for the crappy job he did raising his son. For now she realized that she had a second dense, almost boyfriend to guide by the hand. As if the first dense boyfriend/girlfriend wasn't causing her to bang her head against any wall, table, desk, or whatever other flat surface that was around on almost a daily basis as it was.
Okay, similar situation as mine. But apply it to Sue-chan. Say her mother got her phone and texted us about... Let's say she got attacked by a villain while sending her siblings off to school. What would your reaction be?
Said girl didn't really show anything on her face as she watched the boy think. At least not until the end. However, this time she blushed slightly as the teen male gave his answer. I think I would have been just about the same as it would have been for you. Although, I can't really figure out why. Indeed, he looked confused at that moment.
Okay, I have one more for you. And then I'll give you something to think about. That something will probably take quite a while for you to work out, though. But if you think about your responses here, you should be able to get a handle on the answer. You ready?
At the boy's nod, she asked.
Okay. Let's say Momo-chan's mom gets into our chat and says that Momo-chan was her. when one of her parents' business rivals set off a bomb on her property. About the same level of concern as there was when Yume-chan had her episode. What would your reaction have been?
The boy didn't quite take as long to think about that scenario as he did the middle two, and the change of expression actually made the frog girl's grin widen perceptibly. I would have excused myself from the table, asked if she needed me to let the teachers know she wouldn't have been at school, offered to bring her homework, and probably some comfort to Ida. San. Inwardly, the brunette groaned as she tried to keep herself from facepalming.
How could he see the obvious attraction between those two, yet fail to see what is actually going on within himself?
Instead, she just let out a sigh and shook her head.
Okay, now here's the question that you are going to have to think about. What is the difference between the way you see Yume-chan, Tsu-chan, and me, compared to our other friends? Someone could argue that you know Yayorozu-chan better than Tsu or myself, but you'd go to further lengths for the three of us. Why?
Are you saying I shouldn't? The boy asked curiously.
No, that's not it, kiddo.
The green-haired girl interjects.
She's asking you to search your feelings and figure out what makes us different from your other friends.
Oh. The room lapsed into silence as the women, adult and young, looked at the teen boy as he sat there, looking back at them. The tension seemed to build in the room as the younger girls hoped they got the boy to figure out what was going on inside. Finally, the boy broke the silence and said, I don't know. This caused the girls to deflate and sigh, then look at the boy's mother. She just shook her head and said,
It's going to take a while, girls. I'll work with him. It's apparent that It's apparent that my soon-to-be ex-husband skimped on the interpersonal skill training.
That man said such skills were useless. The heterochromatic teen offered, apparently upset that he wasn't getting what the girls were asking. Said boy's mother sighed and looked at the two girls before shaking her head.
Can you give me some time with my son, please? I need to talk to him. Okay.
Ochako said with a slight frown. She stood up and then smiled at the boy and added,
If you need to talk to us, just ask, okay?
Sue nodded along with her girlfriend before giving up herself.
If needs be, text us, okay?
Receiving a nod from the boy, the two teen girls turned to leave the room. Inji Todoroki was led into a room with a single table and two chairs. In the one closest to the door sat his lawyer, Sone Fumio. The man looked typically Japanese, which was growing rarer and rarer in today's world. He had black but graying hair and black slitted eyes, but his features and his expressions were normally sharp. Today, however, he had a frown on his face as the larger man was led into the room. The Quirk suppressing cuffs were fastened to the desk so he could sit down in the chair, facing the one-way mirror behind his lawyer. And she had to wonder why they were using an interrogation room for this. After a few moments of pleasantries, which the number 2 hero bore grudgingly, the man got down to business. The reason it took me so long to see you is because we were still fighting your wife's release. I regret to inform you that effort failed spectacularly.
What?
The prisoner yelled.
How on earth did she get free? There should have been enough evidence to keep her hospitalized for a long time.
Her lawyers used that stunt you pulled with your son to throw doubt on your testimony and got a delay of the hearing. I just came from said hearing. Not only did they manage to use your alleged attack on your son to cast doubt on your state of mind, but they also found records kept by the hospital's chief administrator of your bribes. They were able to trace it back to the hospital's administration's refusal to release your wife. As a result, the man is now on administrative leave, pending wrongful incarceration charges, which you are now sharing. The man said, seemingly not fazed by said outburst. The normally flaming man was fuming, though not a lick of flame was escaping him. He would contend with the bitch later when he got out of his prison. In the meantime, he needed to know where he stood.
Okay, so what else are they charging me with?
His lawyer frowned deeply at the growl in the man's voice and said, "Don't take that tone with me, Todoroki-san. First of all, you have lost most of the lawyers you have on your retainer. In fact, my firm is the only firm you haven't remaining. And my partner is the only civil attorney who will work your case. The only reason we are still representing you is because if we left, you would have anyone. That and the fact that the funding for our services is one of the few remaining funds that hasn't been frozen by the government. So, unless you want a public defender, I suggest you take a more civil tone. Do you understand me?" This gave the big man pause as he considered the man's words. He knew the man sitting in front of him demanded respect out of his clients.
I'm sorry. Being in here has gotten me more upset than usual. But what do you mean my funds have been frozen? What's going on?
First, the government has frozen your hero wages pending a full investigation regarding your actions over the past 2 years. This represents the statute of limitations the HPSC can review, without having someone from outside press charges. Your merchandising revenue and all other revenues are still paying as normal. However, most of your main accounts are frozen pending divorce proceedings initiated by Rei Todoroki, née Homura. The same court that released her made some preliminary rulings regarding those proceedings. A part of the hero was rather indifferent to the news that his wife was filing for divorce. In his mind, she had done her duty and therefore was of no further use to him. But the freezing of his accounts did not bode well.
What rulings were made?
First, all transactions in any joint accounts are to be monitored for any suspicious activity. Any attempt to defund those accounts by either party will be seen in a negative light. Both she and you are given allowances according to your lifestyles and needs, but of you if you have further funds for legal expenses in equal amounts. Apparently, the judges were not amused at the attempt to keep her hospitalized for the rest of her life, which was the reason given when the chief administrator for her hospital was questioned on the stand. So, they made moves to protect her. These rulings angered the Flame Hero greatly. He curled his hand into a fist, and had he not been forced to wear Quirk's suppressing cuffs, he would likely be melting the chair and the table in front of him.
Let me guess. A restraining order?
Yes. With the sole exception of legal proceedings, you are not to be within a half a kilometer of her, or any member of your family for that matter.
What?
The large man growled out involuntarily.
Any family member?
The lawyer arched a brow to remind the hero of his earlier reprimand.
Did you know that... did you honestly think you could get away with from trying to incinerate your youngest son in public without any kind of repercussion? In addition to the legal charges of attempted murder, arson, willful destruction of public and private property, and public endangerment, you are also being charged with child abuse. As a result, the court has said until those charges are resolved, you are not to have any unsupervised contact with your family. That means no more training your youngest, assuming you are let out on bail.
What do you mean, if I am let out on bail? It is my right to be let out on bail as a Japanese citizen,
the hero demanded.
That is true, except in cases where reasonable grounds exist to believe that the accused will further attack, injure, or kill the victim,
the attorney reminds the hero.
And that is where your wife's lawyers are basing their arguments. Your long history of high violence against criminals, high property damage, and high bystander injury counts works against you here. Add to this the mysterious disappearance of your eldest son, reported dead by you. Really, the courts may decide you're too high of a risk. At the very least, they'll uphold the restraining orders put in place by the civil courts. How did my wife get such good lawyers?
The large man grumbled.
Through a group of heroes who were alerted to your youngest son's condition. They contacted Nesu of UA, and he referred them to her current lawyers. I do not have any further information, beyond the fact that these lawyers have very good track records,
Mr. Sone replied.
Damn. What can be done?
Todoroki-san, you might as well prepare yourself to face repercussions for your actions. I will try to moderate them as best I can, but the victims have supplied the prosecution with too much evidence for you to get totally free of charges. You will need to do exactly as we say, and above all else, control your temper. I understand. Elsewhere in Japan. A black-haired young man sat in a bar, nursing a shot of plum wine. Even though there were people all around him, he was, in fact, sitting alone. He had large patches of severely burned skin covering his arms, neck, and part of his face, with staples holding it to rather normal-looking skin. No one really knew him there. He just came into this bar to have a drink, and his general demeanor tended to keep anyone who would be curious about his appearance away. The television played in the background, set to hero news, which normally would have irritated this man, but he was too lost in thought to really care. The last few days had been interesting, to say the least, and a small part of him felt some sense of vindication to hear the most recent hero events. The rest of him alternated between ecstatic and angry. He was happy that the number 2 hero was being taken down, but the rest of him was furious. He wanted to be the cause of the man's demise. Him and his favorite project.
And now we go to our special correspondent, Kizuki Chutose, with the latest breaking news on the Endeavor crisis.
A nondescript man with a tiger head said on the television.
Kizuki-san.
The man's attention was drawn to the screen as a blue-skinned woman sat in a studio chair across from a man in a tan 3-piece suit. The man had brown hair and gold eyes, and sported a goatee the same color as the hair.
Thank you, Goto-san,
the blue-skinned woman said.
With me tonight is a professor of law at Tokyo University, Okabe Atsushi, He will be discussing the ramifications of the latest developments in the ongoing situation surrounding Endeavor's alleged attack against his youngest son. Welcome to our show, Okabe-san.
Thank you for having me,
the man said. In the meantime, the black-haired man at the bar turned toward the barkeep and asked,
Any idea what they're talking about?
The barkeep shook his head and turned up the television so that it could be heard a bit better. This was breaking news, apparently.
Well, for those of you who have been keeping up with the news over the past few days, number 2 hero Endeavor was apprehended by an unidentified underground hero 2 days ago, stopping a rampage that severely injured 5 innocent bystanders and destroyed hundreds of thousands of dollars of property and
Shitose explained.
While this level of damage was not unusual for this particular hero, the hero's choice of target was. Endeavor wasn't chasing a villain, and the person he was chasing wasn't even suspected of a crime. No, the person he was chasing was his own youngest son, who we have been forbidden from naming here.
There were quiet murmurs throughout the bar. The man with black hair just raised a hand, rotated it around, and get on with it gesture. This part was old news.
If this was all of Endeavor's worries, then we would not be sitting here about to discuss his problems now. No, just today an announcement was made that his wife, Todoroki Rei, was released from long-term hospitalization from the psychiatric ward of an undisclosed hospital. Furthermore, charges of improper incarceration, accepting bribes, and accessory to mental spouse abuse were levied against key administrators.
Well now, this is interesting,
the man thought as he listened to the broadcast.
She's really going after him, huh?
This alone would be newsworthy enough for comment, but the real interesting part comes in the fact that the custody of all of Endeavor's remaining children has been given to Todoroki Rei, and a restraining order has been filed against Endeavor on behalf of the entire family.
The man's eyes widened at that proclamation.
Well, score 1 for her.
So, Goto-san, given these facts, what does this mean for Endeavor's chances for freedom?
The blue-skinned woman asked.
By themselves, they don't change much. But the facts that drive each of these results could spell serious trouble for Endeavor's chances of obtaining a not guilty verdict, much less any leniency by the court,
the man replied.
Too bad. Endeavor's presence has been a powerful deterrent against crime for a long time. He is well known for his hard work ethic and perseverance to do the right thing. How the mighty have fallen.
The blue-haired woman replied. At this point, the black-haired man sighed and finished his wine, then left money on the bar for a tip. He put his hands in his pockets as he rose up from the bar and started out the door, not giving the TV another thought.
So, Mom is striking back against the bastard, huh? Well, whoop-dee-doo. Good for her. Doesn't change anything. Dear Shoto just got a taste of what the old man is really like. Too bad. So sad. Still, doesn't change anything. No, it only makes the game a bit more interesting. Time to fade back a bit and figure out my next move.
Alrighty, y'all. That was the chapter. Thank y'all so much for coming and hanging out with me tonight. So looks like we probably have our group, I'm gonna guess, of Todoroki, Asui, Ochako, and Yume. I am absolutely, like, I adore how much attention DRGN puts into building up these relationships. So many times in fanfics I see relationships get rushed through so quickly because, and I get it, because as a writer, it's very tempting to want to get to the good parts, and because but it's very important to let that build happen because it builds tension, makes the readers keep coming back. And they definitely, DRGN does a great job of doing that every single chapter. I have that want to see what happens next for sure. And then as for the stuff with Endeavor, like, he's screwed, like, and rightfully so. What he did was completely fucked up. So I'm very glad to see Endeavor getting his comeuppance. Hopefully the trial goes off without a hitch. And then Dobby, oh lord, what is he gonna do? Since it's obvious that DRGN set it up so that he's not going to have a redemption here, or at least not yet. So I'm very curious where that's going to lead. It's most likely, I'm guessing, next chapter we'll end up getting a interaction between Yume and Shoto, and possibly even the trial, but we'll have to see what happens next time. If you guys enjoyed the chapter, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing down below if you haven't already. And I look forward to seeing you all in my next video. Ciao for now, lovelies.